A very good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the FutureSkills Prime Career Mantra, the Program Manager's Playbook. My name is Amrita from FutureSkills Prime, the national digital skilling platform, which is a joint initiative of Ministry of Information Technology and Electronics and NASCO. Our valued learning content partner for this session is Flow Games, which is an edtech organization focused on creating engaging learning experiences for professionals through immersive games and story-based simulations. Each game helps you step into authentic workplace scenarios, make real-life decisions, and face realistic consequences as you work towards mastering critical workplace skills. Now, let's get ready for a one-of-a-kind gamified session on program management. Learning how to balance multiple projects at the same time, engage and influence stakeholders, mitigate risks, and successfully achieve business objectives. Our expert for today is Ajay Gupta, founder, Skills Cafe, and the Kahani project. Ajay's work straddles the domains of educational technology, digital games, board games, gamification, and storytelling. He is currently responsible for scaling multiple teams and products in Skills Cafe. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this amazing platform. Thank you, everybody who's joining in. Quick check if my audio is clear. We can get started. We'll try and keep this. I know that there are many participants. We'll try and keep this as engaging as possible. Let's get started. I'm going to start sharing my screen at this point of time. So just give me a second on that. There you go. Okay, so a quick introduction about me. I'm the founder of Skills Cafe and also the Kahani project, which is a not-for-profit. We work with children, we work with stories, but mostly in Skills Cafe, we are developing educational products, games mostly. We love playing games. We love people playing games. And we feel that, games bring about this high energy. It brings about feedback. It brings about safety. You're feeling safe to fail in a game. And those are the things that we love to leverage in all the gamified programs that we do in Flow Games. Yeah, so I'm also joined by my colleague Ritika in this webinar. The game that we're going to play together was designed by her team. So thanks, Ritika, for joining in for this session. So what do? We create short games and simulations to master critical workplace skills, and we're going to play a game on program management today, a little later in the session. But let's just kind of double click, and I'm going to come back to what do we do in Flow Games, but I want to jump into the topic today. Now, a lot of us understand the role of project managers, right? So I spent a little bit of time when I was, before I started up in various functions, also managing projects. So project managers are very critical. They are looking at how do we deliver a goal? Yeah. So, for example, one of the examples could be that you want to build a bridge, you want to construct a flyover, and it's a 5-year project or a 6-year project, and you've got X amount of resources to do it, and you've got contractors and suppliers that you work with, and there is a project manager who typically is focused on ensuring that we can get that project delivered in the amount of time with the resources that have been assigned. Now, a lot of us kind of question constantly, what's the difference between a project manager and a program manager? So what would you do if you were a program manager when we think about, building flyovers? A program manager, on the other hand, would actually be looking at the whole transportation for a city, yeah, or a city block. And the flyover is one of the components of those integrated systems which is causing transport to become better in the city. Yeah. So I live in Bangalore, very close to me. Where I live is Koramangala. They've been building a flyover for some time now. connecting one part of the city to the other. So there is a project manager who's delivering that, but I'm sure that there is somebody who is looking at transport overall for this section of Bangalore. Now, so a lot of us must be asking this question, why do we need a program manager if we have a project manager? Yeah. So let me give you an example. And this is very critical for anybody who is wanting to move into a program manager role, wanting to transition into a program manager role. So imagine you're a pilot in an aircraft. Yeah, you're trying to land your aircraft into Bangalore. It's a Monday evening. It's very high traffic up in the air. So as a pilot, you're acting as a project manager. You're trying to land the aircraft and ensure that your flyers reach Bangalore on time, or whichever city that you're landing in. Yeah. So that's a project manager. But if you were to step into the shoes of the air traffic controller, for example, the air traffic controller is like the program manager. The air traffic controller is responsible for your flight landing, but is also responsible to ensure that the 50 other flights which are coming into Bangalore, hovering over the city, all get to land and get to experience a smooth journey. That's what a program manager does. Yeah. Now, I believe that the role of the program manager is going to become more and more important. Yeah. It's going to be super critical. Let me give you some examples. Let me give you some examples of why program managers are going to become super critical for organizations. And I'm going to take some, really funny examples. And this is an example of what we see almost every day. If you're in a city like I live in, so imagine the road construction company, the project manager for the road construction company comes in and lays out a beautiful road. Yeah, they kind of white top it and it's beautiful. And then the electricity department comes in and says, hey, we got to lay a cable here. And what do? They, dig through the exact road that was built just 2 weeks back, and they put the cable in, and they leave the road like that. For the road department to come back again a couple of weeks or months later to kind of fix the road. And this keeps going on and on. Yeah. Now, you must have understood where I'm taking this. The individual project managers are narrowly focusing on what they have to deliver. And they deliver it great, right? So do we not need project managers? Of course, we need project managers. But if you suddenly zoom out and you think about this problem, you come into this perspective that there's got to be somebody who's looking at all these things in an integrated way. You're maximizing resources. You're working with stakeholders better. You're ensuring things are happening in a much more connected way, right? So that's the role of the program manager. Okay, let me take you another example. And this example is, again, from some of the Indian cities. What you see here is a very interesting, you see almost a 4-lane highway, right? This is a story of most of our cities across India and the world. This is probably 5 o'clock in the evening, yeah, when the traffic is coming into the city. And do you notice that there is a completely 4-lane highway, which is completely unutilized? Yeah. So if you think about roads as a resource that a city has at its disposal, quick question, and you can type out your answers in the chat. Do you think as a city we are managing a resource well when you look at this photograph? I'm going to give everybody a minute or a 30 seconds to think about it. As a city, are we managing our resources well if at 5 o'clock we find one side of the 4-lane highway empty and the other one completely chock-a-block? Now, again, it comes down to who is driving resources from an overall perspective. So let's think about it. You are a project manager who's assigned to the left lane. You're only looking at the left lane. You're thinking about how do I maximize this left lane, make it beautiful, make it super smooth. But what you're not able to see as a project manager is that there is another project manager who's required to manage the right lane. And the right lane and the left lane project managers are not really talking to each other. And that's what is happening here. So what do we need? We need somebody who doesn't look at the road, but looks at the overall traffic flow. Somebody who's accountable for the overall traffic flow for the whole city, or for that section of the transport. That's the role of the program manager. Yeah. Now I'm going to make it slightly more simpler. So if you are, for example, you're building an application. Yeah, you're building an enterprise grade application. Typically, if you're a project manager, you're working on a set of features. You're working on a set of your swim lane, or you're working on your little agenda, and you've got your goals assigned to that. Now, you could be developing or deploying resources or using assets or resources which have already been developed or built somewhere else. Or there are possible interconnections that are there which we are not being able to leverage. So what does a program manager do? And here is a beautiful graphic and table that I picked up from Reich.com, and you will have it in the show. After the notes, you can go to this blog, subscribe to them. So a project is a temporary activity. It's a one-time activity with a fixed goal. A program is interconnected, sequential, and it's combined. It's a combination of various projects which is delivering something at a strategic level. Yeah, the focus of a project is on that narrow deliverable, that content, that piece that you want to deliver. Yeah, the program is actually looking at the context. It's looking at what are the possibilities, what are the strategic requirements that are being looked at. The time horizon is short term versus long term. And you will also notice that project management is about specific deliverables, while program management is about how is the program taking the organization closer to its goals. So I'm going to go back to the traffic example. The traffic example tells us that the project manager is required to deliver on how the road is functioning. The program manager is defining or is looking at how is traffic flow across, how are we utilizing our resources the best from an overall perspective. Yeah, so that's why the benefits to the organization, are we meeting the goals of the organization? So how long can be the duration of a program? And I love this fact that, keep throwing your questions in if I can answer them right away. Some programs can last longer. Yeah. So I believe that when we started with in our early days of our constitution, we said a 5-year program. Everybody knows the 5-year programs that we do in India. That's an example of a program, by the way. Yeah. And whatever we may think of, a lot of great stuff came out of those 5-year programs. They may not be as effective or efficient because of whatever areas that the 5-year plan is almost like a long-term program that you have. Yeah. So, but again, the question is the time that you have for a program should be aligned with the overall goals of the organization. So every organization typically does a short-term planning and a long-term plan. So you could have programs which are aligned to a short-term plan, which is the next 1 to 2 years, depending on how the organization defines, or you could have a program which is long-term, which is 3 to 5 years. That's the time scales that programs could run on. It also depends on where you are. So if you're doing a research project in vaccines, for example, or you're trying to do a research project in something, programs could be longer because research programs run longer. But you could have an application or a software program which could run for smaller sections as well. Yeah. All right. Let's keep going ahead. All right. So staying with that thought process, we're going to now, as promised, we're going to play this particular game. And please keep the questions coming in. I love the questions that are coming in. I'm making a note of those, and we'll take some of those questions again from my experience, from what I have done in terms of managing programs. So we are going to focus on one particular game, which is available on the FutureSkills Prime, built by our team, which is called the Program Manager's Playbook. It's a program. It's a gamified course, so it's not really a course where you sit down and listen to somebody. You actually play a game. You help a particular person plan and manage a program. Yeah, great. So let's do this little activity together. And I'm going to, start off by playing this little activity just to kind of ensure that everybody is in sync. I hope everybody can see my screen, right? Fantastic. So now, as the cards are coming up, I can drag them left or right, which means it's either a project or a program. Yeah, it's either a project or a program. And help me out here. Help me out here in the chat. Keep your chat ready, and I'm going to keep playing alongside. Delivers a value-adding outcome. Is that a project or a program? A value-added outcome. Fantastic. Vivek, fastest fingers first. Closely linked to organizational strategies, so it cannot be outsourced. Fantastic. This is a great example of what a program can do. A typical program, sections of the programs can be outsourced, but the program management itself is an example of something that may not be outsourceable. Upgrade the food delivery app to create a competitive advantage. What do you think is that? Yeah. Fantastic. Everybody thinks it's a project. Let's put that down. So the reason why the app to create a competitive advantage is a program is because you're not looking at building some features into the existing app. Yeah. What you're doing here, and the moment you say, I said to create a competitive advantage, I need to step out of my shoes of being a project leader, right? I need to step back and say, hey, what does competitive advantage mean for this organization? Yeah. What are my competitors doing? I need to interview my stakeholders. I probably need to do empathy maps. I need to get into, detailed user research. A lot of those can define what the competitive advantage could be. If this were upgrade the delivery app to make delivery faster from 20 minutes to 5 minutes in the application, that would be a project. Yeah. Right now, because it's to deliver a competitive advantage, it could be a program. All right. Okay, let's look at this one. Add multiple restaurant pickup features in the food delivery app. What do you think is this? Fantastic. Thanks, Himanshu. This is great. This is a project. Do you notice the difference? It's a feature within a larger piece. Now, the piece that you're working on could be an app. Yeah. So you could still divide it into a program and a project. So using usually a long-term initiative, definitely you understood that's a program. Bring about digital transformation in the organization. A lot of organizations are talking about that. A program. Digitize all existing employee records. What do you think is that? Digitizing all existing records. Fantastic. That's a project. That's a beautiful example of a project. Short-term initiative project can be outsourced. We spoke about that. Delivers a specific output given a specific timeline. Fantastic. That's a project. Fantastic. We got 9 out of 10. Everybody, super. This was great. Now let me up the challenge a little bit more on everybody. Yeah. And as I said, you're going to play this game together. And for this game, what is going to happen is that this is the program management experience is divided into 2 parts. One is those little activities which helps you understand the concepts. Then we kind of get into, playing the role of a program manager. Yeah. In this particular program, what we do is we play the role of Natasha, who is a program manager, and she needs to succeed in her program. Yeah. What we are going to do, we're going to play episode 1 of this game. If you were to take this program, there are about 8 episodes, and each episode is mapped to certain skills, competencies, and understanding that program managers require in various stages of the program. Yeah. And I'm going to give you a quick briefing on what are the various things, activities that a program manager could be looking at. So here is what Sarah is trying to do. It's an online art gallery, Artopia, that she works for. It supplies modern art for homes, offices, and hotels. Beautiful application. They have partnership with multiple interior designers, architects, and that's how they deliver things. Now, Ricky, who is one of your stakeholders. Now, one important concept that you will always hear in program management is this word called stakeholders. Yeah. Very interestingly, for project managers, the kind of stakeholders that you work with are typically your team, probably the product lead or the program lead, and some customers. The moment you walk into the shoes of a program manager, the stakeholder perspective just magnifies. It becomes huge. So take the example of the pilot versus the ATC. The stakeholders that the pilot is speaking to is much lesser, and that's how they're able to focus. But the ATC controller is talking, the Bangalore ATC is talking to the Jaipur and to the Mumbai ATC and the Chennai ATC, and they're all connected. So the number of stakeholders are much, much more. Yeah. So the head of sales in this case noticed that they were recently losing a number of customers because of inadequate customer service. And so what do is, with the discussion with the CEO, it was decided that they would create an artificial intelligence-based chatbot to help improve the speed and quality of customer support. So when somebody comes to the app, they have a bot which is able to help solve some of the queries. So this person, Ricky, who is the head of sales, is the program sponsor. Now you will also hear this beautiful term when you're doing a program management, and that's called the program sponsor. This program sponsor typically is a person who controls the resources that are required or has authority over those resources that are required to deliver the program sufficiently. Yeah. Now, they may not have all the authority. They may need to connect with other stakeholders to get certain things going, but they are sufficiently high up in the authority that they can influence other stakeholders to make some things happen for you. So every program needs to understand stakeholders and needs to have a program sponsor, typically a program sponsor. Yeah. All right. So now let's do this. And the way we're going to play this game is, all our games are, by the way, choice-based. Yeah. So if you choose the right options, the story is going to kind of go in one direction. You're going to gain points or lose points. So we're going to play the episode 1, which is wearing the program management hat. This is just episode 1. And what my colleagues are going to do, they're going to push out a polling question to you, which are basically option A and option B. So create a high-level program plan, talk to Ricky to understand the expectations. So let's open the polling question number 1. Can we have the polling question number 1 opened up? Fantastic. What do you want to do? Create a high-level program plan or talk to Ricky to understand the expectations of the program? And we're going to keep it on for about 30 seconds to check what we get there. So everybody's got that poll pop up, right? So you can click an option, whichever you feel. Another 10 seconds, maybe. Okay, can we close the poll then? Fantastic. Super. So 72% people believe that we should go talk to Ricky. Fantastic. And about 28% people believe that we should create a high-level program plan. Now, this is one of the subtleties between project planning and program planning. Program planning usually, because of the strategic nature of the activity, instead of jumping into a plan, we first spend a lot of time understanding expectations. That's one of the mindsets of a program manager. Yeah. Speak to your stakeholders to understand what are the expectations. What are the larger strategic goals that we need to work towards? The program plan itself may not be something, we'll see how it goes, but it's something that is going to emerge. It's very critical to have the plan. But before we sit down to create the plan, we need to create our overall understanding of the project, of the program itself. Ricky is a great person to get that information from, but so can be other stakeholders. You probably need to go speak to other stakeholders to understand the expectations. Yeah. So if you notice, what we are doing is we are zooming out a little bit. So if a project manager is at 500 feet, the program manager is operating at 30,000 feet. Fantastic. Let's see if everybody got the answer right. Talk to Ricky to understand the expectation. That's perfect. Let's keep moving ahead. So now you're going to meet Ricky. You're meeting Ricky. And so Ricky says, hey, Natasha, what do you want to talk about? And you've got two options here. I want to understand the need for this initiative a little better. What made us decide to work on this bot now? Or the second one, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to understand which of the features you want done on priority. I will plan accordingly. Can we push out the polling question now? There is Ankur, there is a poll coming in. So if you could use that polling, just select the option that you believe. Super. Let's give it another 15 seconds. And we can close the poll now. Let's see, what do we get as results? What do people think? Oh, almost the same. So almost, can we hold that for a second? You know, this is very interesting. So almost 50-50, 50% people believe that we should not take up too much time from the stakeholder, just tell us the features that you want. And the other 50% believes that we should actually step back and think about why this program is going to be is important. Now I'm going to kind of question everybody. Let's look at it. This is 50-50, remember, and that's why I'm going to go back to my presentation, and I'm going to kind of go back to this beautiful little table from the right. Let's think about it. Short term versus long term. Benefits over or value or benefits over deliverables. Value over deliverables. And now I want you to rethink this. Isn't this great? Yeah. Now, so I'm just going to kind of, for the purpose of the gamification, I'm going to select one of the answers which we got. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let's see what happens when you select that option. Yeah. So as a program manager, it's important for you to discover that on your own. Remember, your role is much more strategic. It is important for you to understand the why before moving ahead. Yeah. So there is a great book. I think it's Simon Sinek, who basically says this beautiful thing. He says, "Ask the why before the what and how." Yeah. The what and how are more, the more operational, more tactical questions. The why question is the more deeper question. It's why do we need to build this bot? What's the larger objective? Yeah, fantastic. So, all right. So that's our. So you go back and ask the other question, which is the most strategic question. The most strategic question, if you chose that question, here is what your stakeholder responded. It's a good question. You see, we recently closed partnership deals with multiple interior designers, but one by one, they all started dropping out. They loved the product but said we were very difficult to reach when they needed support. Given the huge number of clients we have in different time zones and limited side of our customer support team, matters are only getting worse. So do you notice, if you just asked him for features, I would have just got a list of things. I would have said, all right, there should be questions. There should be pre-hot plated questions, or whatever you call them, prompted questions. Those are features. But the moment we ask the why question, do you notice you gain more insights? You gain insights around time zones. How big is your customer support team? Why is this such a constraint and challenge for your team? Yeah. So you get deeper answers when you wear the hat of the program manager. Yeah. Now, some of you might be saying that, aren't these questions something that a project manager should ask? Fantastic. The answer is yes. If you are looking to build a career or transition into program managers, start practicing these questioning today. So if you're working on a project and you want to gain more insights with your stakeholders, start asking these questions today. Yeah, you will see that your transition is much more smoother. I also believe that the hat of wearing a program manager's hat is more of, a mindset. It obviously has skills, but it's also a mindset which you need to kind of enter into. All right, time for our next question. So what do we want to say next to our stakeholder? Could you tell me the timeline that you had in mind for this? I can come up with a rough plan accordingly. Or do you want to say, so who is our target audience for this? Is it all our clients or just a particular location to begin with? And you've got two options there on the poll now. I'm going to move the poll a little bit if everybody can see. Keep thinking about wearing the program manager's hat as you do that. And 5 seconds more. And we can close the poll. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Let's see what the results are. Wow. Great. So we've got about 64% people who want to know about the target audience and 36% people who want to know about the timeline. So here is another very interesting thing about projects versus programs is that when you are trying to understand about a program, you are trying to understand so if you remember, the first question was the need for the organization. Why is this project strategically important to you? That was the first question. The second question is, which aspect of the customer, what types of customers, what kind of customers can you tell me are requiring this kind of an application? You're trying to narrow your scope down. Now, if you are a great project manager, you would know that your timelines are connected to the scope, isn't it? So when you ask and understand the target audience, you are more able to define the scope of the project, and hence you can get better understanding of the timelines coming into the future. Yeah. So the correct answer here, if you were to look at the strategic perspective of a program manager, would be to ask, what's the target audience? Yeah, what's the target audience? Yeah. Remember, one of the interesting things is that also is, if I understand the target audience is, it's a global target audience, some people in North America, some people in Southeast Asia, I probably need to hire behavioral researchers or UX experts, behavioral UX designers on our team who help us understand, how do you create something which is going to work at a global level? Yeah. So you're trying to be more broad-minded when you're asking those questions. All right, so we'll pilot it with a small group of clients in our locations. And Himanshu, I'm just going to kind of switch to the screen where we were doing that. So we'll pilot it with a small group of clients in all our locations. That way we can get different reactions to the bot at the same time. Okay, so we need the chatbot to support multiple languages. It's a good thing that we clarified this right at the beginning. It would have been a tough change to make later on. Do you see the importance of asking the target audience question? You're getting more and more details about the scope. Now, again, remember, some of you must be asking, hey, but these are questions that project managers should also ask. Exactly. Get into the habit of asking these questions as you plan your transition in your career to becoming a program manager, because these questionings and consulting abilities are going to help you there. Because somebody asked for the project versus program, here is the projects versus program. This is Rike.com, a brilliant resource base that you could refer to for this particular piece difference. Yeah, super. Let's get into a poll then. So you return to your desk to begin work on the program plan. 1 second, I'm just going to kind of keep the poll open. I'm just going to go to the next question. Sorry. You start to work on a rough program plan. You decide that it's best to break the development into various projects so that every project can focus on a fixed deliverable. Yeah. Since most of the deliverables are linked to each other, there are several interdependencies that may impact timelines. Yeah. So you understood that you went back to your desk and you said, hey, this looks like a fairly complex piece. I'm going to break this down into smaller projects. Yeah. And each project will have its deliverable, but these projects are interconnected, which means the AI engine, the semantic engine, probably is linked to my the language processor, which is going to kind of decipher the various foreign languages. Yeah, so they need to work interdependent. What do you want to do about these? Spend time understanding the interdependencies and plan the timelines accordingly. Now that you're the program manager, there is no longer your responsibility. Let the project managers figure out how to deal with it. Since Ricky is looking after the initiative as a whole, keep him informed about the interdependencies so that he can plan accordingly. Yeah, this is going to be a slightly trickier question. I'm going to give about 15 seconds for you to think about this question because it's a slightly more complex question. All right, let's look at that. Fantastic. So understand the interdependencies and plan accordingly has got about 70% votes. Let the project managers handle it has got about 8% votes. This is going to be very interesting. And keep Ricky informed about the interdependencies so that he can plan is 22%. Yeah. So one of the options that we want to kind of talk a little bit about and take away is, remember, Ricky may be a great stakeholder who is sponsoring and supporting you, but probably doesn't want to get into the operational details of how you're going to deliver your program. Remember, Ricky at his level could be working on multiple such programs. He could be overseeing or sponsoring multiple such programs. So he may not want to look at the nitty-gritties of the interdependencies. Those are more operational. Yeah. So your stakeholders' time is probably best used when you want some resources, you want to give a project update, you want some validation, you want to take a decision which is complex and costly. Yeah, which means there are several possible options to choose from, and it's, by the way, it's called the hard choice model, which basically means that if there are several competing decisions and the outcome of the decision is going to be costly or expensive, that's when you want to walk up to your stakeholder and say, hey, guess what? Need your support in deciding. For this, I'm not sure if Ricky is the right person, but I could be wrong. We'll see. Now, let's look at the second option. The second option sounds a little strange, but let's ask this question. Do you want to delegate? And that's one of the things that program managers do very well. They are able to set the strategic vision of a program, but then allow the project managers to identify their individual deliverables and then come back and look at it from a program perspective. Yeah. So the reason for that is that as a program manager, you also need to give sufficient amount of autonomy to your project manager so that they can execute on the deliverables and the tasks that they want. They don't want a program manager who's micromanaging them. Yeah. So just remember this, because you're a program manager, you want to be sure that you're giving enough authority and ceding control to your project managers to be able to deliver on their or decide on their deliverables. But what you want to do is keep them informed about the interdependencies that are happening. Yeah. So I'm going to spend some time understanding the interdependencies and plan the timelines accordingly. Now, are you going to plan the timelines for the project? That's the more important thing. And we go back into our discussion, our table. Are you responsible for the output versus the outcome? Now, this is a very, very important difference. What's the difference between output and outcome? Output means what comes out after a series of steps. Outcome means, did that output align with our overall goals? Yeah. So for example, we have a factory, we are producing cars. At the end of a day, we produce 50 cars. But are those 50 cars mapping to the quality standards that we wanted? That's the outcome that we wanted. Did it produce the kind of efficiencies? Did we require 60? So when you're looking at output, you're looking at, specific deliverables. When you're looking at outcomes, you're looking at larger metrics. So now I want you to rethink two things: output versus outcome. And do you want to give enough autonomy to your project managers to design the deliverables? Yeah. So now I am tending towards the second one, but we have our our expert who is designed the program, designed the game for us. I'm going to choose the project managers. I'm going to trust my project managers to be able to create the timelines. Yeah, fantastic. Let's see what we get. Oops, I wasn't correct. Yeah, I wasn't correct. So since you have a view of the overall development, you're in the best position to understand and plan for interdependencies. Yeah. So you want to cede control, but you want to keep a little bit of control to yourself so that you can give people the perspective on the interdependencies. I hope everybody understood. So you guys, all of you are more right than I was. I was trying to cede more control, but you rightly pointed out that, plan it, because you have the bird's eye view. Let's get into the next question. One last thing before we can, and this is going to be our last question from the perspective of the game. One last thing before we can dive deep into planning. The timelines seem pretty tight. Can we have the poll open, please? Can we open the poll? Question number 5. Every task will have to be carefully detailed and planned to ensure that it's delivered to perfection. And there are 2 options there again. Spend time carefully planning each task right at the beginning to avoid surprises. Let the project managers decide on the deliverables. There is no need for you to get involved. Yeah. So 15 seconds for that question. 15 seconds, 10 seconds now. And we can close the poll. Let's see what we got there. All right. So we've got 67% people who selected option 1, spend time carefully planning all tasks. And about 33% people say, let the project managers decide. Yeah. So now I go back to the previous question. In the previous question, I could see the interdependencies, and hence I needed to jump into the fray. But now that I've given the interdependencies and I've given them an overall perspective, do I want to micromanage them to create their plan and time carefully? Or should I allow them the autonomy? That's what the question is. And I think, yes, Gurvinder, thank you so much. I do believe now it's time for a program manager to say, I've understood strategically what is required. I've defined the interdependencies. I've picked up my team. I've decided overall strategic outcomes. The outputs can be now managed by the individual project managers who are looking at each one. I'm hoping that I get it right this time. So let the project managers handle that. Fantastic, as I had. So not bad. So that's the episode 1. There are 8 such episodes in the game when you played. So let's see how we did in this episode. I got a 60% score, a moderate score, because we got we got some answers one answer which was a critical answer, which I did not get right. And one of the things that we can do in games, which I love, is that based on how you're deciding, each person gets their little, and you can replay. You can play this episode all over again to get a high score. Yeah. So my program is at a risk for delay right now. The decision quality that I used was moderate. Yeah. So great. So I hope you had fun playing that first round of the game. Let's switch back. So if you were to play the whole game, there are 8 such episodes, and as I said, each episode takes you through various modalities, various attributes and nuances of program management. The first one was around projects versus programs. So you have a detailed understanding. So if you look at the decisions, they were mapped to this. But I'm hoping everybody got a quick glance or a quick glimpse of the hat that you need to wear when you're a program manager and the hat that you need to wear as a project manager. Yeah. Now, some people are going to ask this question. Does this mean that we don't need project managers? Absolutely no. We need project managers. We need, so now I know that there are Scrum Masters, there are people, the project manager role itself has kind of modified or transitioned. There are multiple ways of looking at that, but those are very important because you need somebody to provide the ongoing guidance and keeping something on track. The program manager, on the other hand, is somebody who's operating at a higher level above the project managers who are managing individual project tracks. Yeah. Another important question that I'm usually asked is that, is it good to start off as a project manager and then transition into a program manager, or should I simply become a program manager? Now, I fundamentally believe that, doing multiple projects at various scales gives you the required amount of experience and expertise to be able to understand some of the nuances about how do you manage a program. Yeah. So from a perspective of experience versus know-how, I do believe that project managers, when they go through various experiences, are able to kind of transition into program manager roles because they understand the nuances. But at the same time, those sets of understanding and know-how that you build as a project manager can sometimes be at risk for you as a program manager. So you need to unlearn a lot of things. You need to unlearn the fact that you are micro-controlling the project timeline. You got to unlearn the fact that you will have a weekly or a daily stand-up where you're going to be controlling or giving guidance or managing individual project features. So one of the things that I've seen people struggling the most when they're moving from project to program is that a lot of the understanding and the baggage from the project management role is not unlearned when they go into the program manager role. Yeah. So if anybody is trying to do the transition, just remember this, that it's a completely different set of skills and mindset that you require to be a program manager. But being a project manager, getting your certifications there, and then transitioning into a program manager is a great career path as well for most of us. Yeah. I also know of a lot of colleagues who have been programmers, have been in HR, have been in finance, and moved horizontally into a program management role, bringing in different perspectives from the other functions and departments that they've worked in. Great. So finally, let's look at, and I'm going to throw open some questions for the last 10 minutes. Remember, program management is a mindset plus a set of skills. Managing multiple projects, handle numerous clients, engage and influence stakeholders. You will hear this word, stakeholder management, influencing without authority, conflict, negotiation, collaboration. These are the competencies that program managers deal with. Manage and mitigate risks. Risk management is a very important, risk and governance, in fact, is a very important critical activity for a program manager. And elevate to strategic and business thinking. Yeah. Super. This is great. So I'm going to open up to questions now. If there are any questions related to this, will everyone get certificates? Yes. So if you did the program and you completed all the 8 modules and achieved a score, a certain score, if you don't achieve a score, you will be asked to retake. Our thought process with this gamified program is not to just ensure completion, but to also think about how do you kind of gain some mastery, gain some experience with that.
Thank you so much, Ajay.
Ankur, thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. So I would request you to also talk about a little bit of the special offer that we have all the attendees who are here with us today, because that's what we pitched for most of us, and that I am personally very interested in it, to get such a beautiful and such an interesting course, my mistake, not a course, a game, which I would love to play with at such a competitive price.
Fantastic. Ritika, do you want to come in with what's the offer that we have for our participants who have attended this workshop?
Yes, of course. So thank you so much for everyone who's attended. For all the participants of this workshop, over the next couple of days, so maybe by Tuesday or so, you'll get an email with a special coupon code that gets you this course for about for $749 only. So the course, I think, if you look at the website, which we'll be posting the link here soon, so the actual course value is $2,300, but you'll be getting it at a very discounted price of $749 only. So you'll get a very special coupon code that's meant only for you if you've registered for this course, and that should hit your inbox by Tuesday. Amrita, if you could just send the link out as well for the
I'm
program
doing that
managers.
right as we speak.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So the short answer is, thanks, Ritika. Wait for the email with the coupon code if you want to take that program. There's an interesting question about the time duration. You will get it on the link as well. But Ritika, correct me if I'm wrong. This program is 8 modules and it takes roughly about 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours to complete the whole program.
It's about 3 to 3.5 hours. Yes.
3 to 3.5 hours. And you don't need to do it in one sitting, right? So the way we played this game, you can actually break it down over a week and keep coming back to it.
Exactly. Yes.
Great. We are waiting for the link to come in. So fantastic. Thank you so much for everybody for your amazing participation today. You can find Ritika and me on LinkedIn as well. You can just search for Ajay Gupta on LinkedIn for Skills Cafe. And I would love to stay connected with all of you. And I will look forward for you to join us in the program. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Amrita.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. I'm posting the link once again. Also, we will be, like Ritika mentioned, sharing these details in an email with everybody who's attended the session. Thank you. Thank you, Ajay. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.